Let's return to focus on student protests. Students at the University of Pretoria have also joined in on the demonstrations against financial exclusion after students who owe the university money were stopped from registering. Student leaders at the institution have since called for the academic year to be postponed until all students are registered. Let's discuss this further now. Josias Mahube from the SRC at the University of Pretoria joins me now. Josiah, it's a pleasure to have you on the program. Good afternoon. Just speak to us on the matter regarding your calls so that the academic year or the registration be postponed because students are still not being considered because of historical debt. What is the situation at the University of Pretoria, and how are you as the SRC assisting students?
Thank you. I'd just like to start off by saying that the reality of our institution is that we're coming from a historically white-dominated and economically suitable institution. So in reality, it does not make sense that we are having students who are facing historical debt issues unable to register due to them being dropped by NSFAS, being dropped by their bursaries, and the institution, looking at it statistically, since it's a small amount of individuals who are suffering from this economic oppression, they should actually be being taken care of a lot more than what is happening now. So we've demonstrated to show our support for all of the other protests happening from other institutions on how NSFAS is playing with students' lives, as well as the fact that there's no funding for the missing middle of students as well. What we as the SRC are doing is that we have been putting demands forward to our institution, of which we have not received any communication yet from our demands, and we're still waiting for our communication from our demands delivered to DHET on Thursday. We do have a study aid fund which is utilized to help students register and help clear historical debt from winter school subjects and summer school subjects as well. However, the institution itself has not provided enough money to the SRC, and it is not enough. So we are also calling for the postponement of the registration period and academic year until all students are able to be funded, because it is an injustice that you have students who live together, they eat together, they have the same education as someone next to them in their class, but they are unable to have access to the most basic thing that we need in this country, and that is education right now. And the fact that we are being neglected as youth, it's also an injustice completely.
So while
we're calling, yes.
Yeah. So while we acknowledge the plight raised by students, this call that you are raising that registration be postponed until all students are registered, are you not worried that this will disrupt the academic calendar and cause further delays?
It can disrupt the academic calendar, but that becomes irrelevant if students are struggling to even get registered into the institution. Students are struggling and stressing, having a mental impact of whether I'm going to be registered. The students are going to be falling behind on class. So we're anyways, by starting on the 15th of March, we're anyways marginalizing students in the student community of people who don't have access. And the reason why they don't have access is not even their own fault. It's due to a systematical issue in our country and by our institutions as well nationally. So as much as it can disrupt the academic year, that becomes redundant if students are unable to have any form of economic stability and economic support, as well as for international students especially as well, because we cannot be at our University of Pretoria saying that we are the best university in Africa, but we struggle and have lack of funding for international students, and especially students coming from Africa to our institution to gain education.
Now, you say you've gotten very little response from the university, but it's interesting to note that this week we also heard from the Minister of Higher Education, that's Dr. Bladen Nzimande. Now, he's urged students to engage in dialogue as opposed to protest. Has there been any further engagement on that front?
Well, Bladen Nzimande, the minister, is calling for us to have dialogue, but I actually came out of a SAUS meeting today where we were told that Bladen Nzimande is not going to us tomorrow when he was supposed to come and address issues and demands that was given to him. So I find it kind of ironic. I find it kind of a bit contradictory that the minister is asking for dialogue and not demonstration and protest, because it's also our constitutional right to demonstrate in this country. And if our minister is unwilling to even engage with just the heads of SRCs from institutions across the country, then how can you expect students to want to engage in dialogue about sorting things out? Because then it becomes completely contradictory. Our minister must lead from the front. He cannot be saying such things and then refuse to meet us.
Yeah, but what response are you expecting? What would you like seeing coming out of your plight?
Well, one thing to make all students happy within our country is if free education is not done just for this year. Free education is given to all students from our generation and generations to come. That is one thing that obviously all students would love and what students want. However, we're not being respected in that manner. That is ultimately what we would like. And also for historical debts to be cleared and for students to have financial suitability within our institutions as well, and especially within University of Pretoria.
Yeah, and we're also seeing that more and more universities are joining the plight of Wit students following their march this week. To what extent are the issues facing students there related to the plight of other students countrywide?
Well, in terms of, like I was saying, is that the University of Pretoria is more, if I can say, a soft life institution as opposed to other institutions who are facing the same issues that we are. But like I mentioned earlier, statistically, it's a very small number of students in our institution. So the mobilization that is happening, it is important because students' voices need to be heard. The youth needs to be heard. We have the highest youth unemployment rate, and what are we doing about it? We are now subjugating students to contractual legal court cases because they have historical debts, which again is not their fault. And the institutions need to be funding our students way more than what they are right now.
Well, Josias, thank you very much for your time. That's Josias Mahube. He represents the SRC at the University of Pretoria.